Recently, IGN had an interview with James Cameron where he spoke about Avatar Fire and Ash, particularly giving us details on Kiri and Lo'ak. Avatar Theory here, hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day. And in case you have not seen the video, there is an interview on IGN that was posted recently, roughly 14 minutes long, where Michael Payton, Senior Editorial Director of IGN, interviewed James Cameron about Avatar Fire and Ash. And I highly recommend you watch the interview because it is interesting as a whole. Like I said, he talks about Avatar Fire and Ash, he talks a little bit about Avatar The Way of Water, and then also some of his other movies. There's some questions in particular that I want to focus on, but essentially, to summarize the interview as a whole, Cameron opened the discussion by making it very clear he will never use AI to write his scripts. For him, writing is a sacred creative act born from a writer's unique lens and lived experience. He stressed that while AI might help reduce costs in visual effects or production, the heart of storytelling, crafting characters, shaping their voices, and working with actors must remain untouched. Cameron even pointed out that the first two Avatar films were created with zero generative AI, underscoring his belief in human-driven artistry. When asked what audiences should pay attention to in a rewatch, that being a rewatch of Avatar The Way of Water, Cameron kind of downplayed the idea of homework. He said fans don't need to dissect every scene for clues. Instead, it's about reconnecting with the Sully family and their bonds, which will be tested and torn apart in the third film. The events of The Way of Water, from Jake's leadership to Neytiri's grief and the children's growth, shape the psychology and emotional landscape that carries directly into Fire and Ash. Cameron then confirmed that Fire and Ash introduces several new characters, with Varang of the Mangkwang clan being the most important. She represents a darker counterpart to the Na'vi way, and her role will deeply impact Jake, Neytiri, and their family. The emotional conflict between clans and families is set to be the driving force of the story. A major highlight, of course, was Kiri. Cameron admitted she's the one unresolved plot point from The Way of Water. In Fire and Ash, fans will finally get both answers and deeper mysteries. Kiri becomes much more central to the outcome of the saga, and Cameron teased that while we'll learn about her origins, the enigma surrounding her connection to Eywa will only grow. Now, Cameron also spoke about Lo'ak, something we kind of knew before, but he revealed that Lo'ak will serve as the narrator of Avatar Fire and Ash, taking over the role Jake held in the first two films. Lo'ak's perspective as an outsider and his complicit relationship with his parents give audiences a new emotional anchor, letting us see the Sully family's struggle through his eyes. Cameron emphasized that The Way of Water and Fire and Ash form one complete story. While films 4 and 5 will move into their own arcs if they happen, the second and third film are designed to work together, resolving their characters' journey while opening doors for what comes next. In other questions, he also spoke about Earth, not only in the Avatar universe, but our Earth as well, and the future. He talks about AI, has some interesting thoughts on that, but he also spoke about some of his favorite shots in his previous movies. Therefore, I highly recommend you watch the whole interview because it does reveal quite a lot and it's just an interesting watch. Now, there are some questions that I want to focus on particularly, and the first one is of Kiri, because Cameron is asked directly if we will get a resolution to, who Kiri is, her background, her story, and Cameron openly admits, saying that yes, her story essentially will be resolved in Avatar Fire and Ash, but her story is basically meant to span across the whole saga, so likely hinting that, even though a lot of her backstory and who she is, where she comes from, will be explained in Avatar Fire and Ash, her story will probably expand through Avatar 4 and 5. I mean, here is exactly what he had to say.
Is there anything, will we get any sort of resolution in Fire and Ash as to where she comes from, what her deal is?
Yes. The answer is yes. I don't want to tell you what that outcome is, but, Kiri remains a bit enigmatic at the end of 2. She's the only question that's not answered. She's the only plot point that remains unresolved, right? And so going into 3, those questions remain. You get a lot of answers, but I can only say that it deepens the mystery. So you'll get some clues, you'll get some legit answers, but you know, her story is meant to be a running thread across the whole saga.
Cameron also openly admits that Lo'ak will be the narrator of Avatar: Fire and Ash, something we did know already, and it's going to be a little bit strange hearing Lo'ak narrate the movie instead of Jake. I mean, we're so used to Jake, and it would feel kind of fitting that Jake finishes off the complete trilogy and then it transitions to Lo'ak. But as mentioned, Cameron says that we will essentially see the story being told from Lo'ak's point of view, as here is exactly what he had to say.
Lo'ak, played by Britton Dalton, is actually the storyteller in movie 3. So whereas Jake was the voiceover narrator of movie 1 and movie 2, we hand that baton to Lo'ak. And that's really more about triangulating on what's happening with his parents and about his relationship with the family and feeling like an outcast and an outsider. We hear it in his words, in his voice.
Then the final question that I want to talk about is the fact that Cameron stated that Avatar 2 and 3 is essentially one story. He also talks about Avatar 4 and 5, but more stating that if they get to Avatar 4 and 5. Of course, it all relies on how well Avatar 3 does, which I have no doubt it'll do really well in cinemas. But of course, if it does hit all the targets that they want to, then we will see Avatar 4 and 5. But I do wonder how Avatar 3 will end. I mean, will it be a complete end or will it leave us at a cliffhanger of sorts? Because if Avatar 4 and 5 does not get made and it leaves us with a cliffhanger, then how will they resolve that? But regardless, here is what Cameron had to say about that.
I think it's important to think of 2 and 3 as a complete story that fully resolves. A new stories, if we get to movie 4, I want to emphasize that, because, you know, it all depends on whether we're successful this time. So 4 and 5 are their own story, and we'll make those films together if we make them. But 2 and 3 form one complete kind of story arc.
So like I said, the interview itself as a whole is about 14 minutes long, and there's still a lot more information in this interview. So check out the interview in the description and the pinned comment below and let me know which part of the interview was your favorite. I was surprised to see this interview drop on IGN yesterday, but I mean, given the fact that Avatar: The Way of Water re-released in cinemas today and that Avatar: Fire and Ash is essentially 2 months away, we're likely going to get a lot of press interviews and especially interviews from Cameron revealing more about the Avatar franchise. So if that's something you want to stay up to date with, then have a look at the rest of my channel. But like I said, what is your favorite part of this interview? And are you excited to see Kiri's story being resolved in Avatar: Fire and Ash? Let me know in the comments below, and for more Avatar content, have a look at the rest of my channel. Until next time, have a fantastic day and stay safe.